This is Viva Fry.
I'm Dr. Peter McCullough.
This is Tom Luongo.
This is Chuck Prodnick.
This is Alex Kreiner.
Hey, this is Brad Wall.
This is JP Sears.
Hi, this is Frank Peretti.
This is Tammy Peterson.
This is Danielle Smith.
This is James Lanci.
Hey, this is Brett Kissel, and you're listening to the Shaun Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. How's everybody doing today? Happy Monday. To all the people who came out and supported the Mashspiel, my hat's off to you. We had a fun day on Saturday. As I'm sitting here, I'm getting still texts of people reaching out, saying how much fun they had. Here's Shannon. She said, "Good morning, guys. Thank you for putting on such a fantastic event. I loved my team. We had so much fun and laughed so hard every game. The fact we made it to the semifinals was miraculous. I put together Eva Chipiak with three ladies. I thought they'd have fun, and they did. Anyways, we did some great trash talking. Yes, they did. One of the highlights, we had our third game. Everybody in the tournament got to go under the. We blacked out the ice, and it was neon, and it was, the music was pumping, and Sheila Gunn Reed, Lise Merle, Eva Chipiak made it price of admission there with the dancing and everything else. What was cool about the Mashspiel, at the start of the day, we brought everybody downstairs to the lobby right in front of where the curling, or the surface was, the ice surface. Asked how many people, were first-time curlers or basically hadn't curled in the last decade. And I would say it was like half, if not more, of the hands went up. And you're like, holy crap, this is going to be cool because, my hat's off to everybody courageous enough to come out and, literally try something new and have a bit of fun. Shout out to Twos for yes, you were right. It was a good idea, Twos. It was a good idea. It was a solid idea. And lots of fun had. Brymar Electric for sponsoring the event and taking the bull by the horns. Tyler and Crystal, shout out to you guys for putting on and helping facilitate an excellent event. And then, I don't know how to put it this way. The team that won it, 4 ladies, shout out to Carrie Ann and her group of gals. They played together as kids, and it had been a decade since they'd all come together and played, and so they won it all, so that was a cool story. And they faced off against everybody. Chuck Prodnick couldn't make it, so the kid who filled in was a 13-year-old kid, and let me tell you, that kid's going places, because, man, everybody was calling him Chuck, but he was an excellent curler. There was a bunch of excellent teenage/kid curlers there, all the way up. I don't know we should have got who was the oldest there, but there was quite the age spectrum of people who turned up for the Mashspiel, that is. And just a shout out to all you. It was a fun weekend, and can't thank you enough for coming out and supporting it. And probably the big news that everybody wants to know. Yes, I beat Twos. All right, we had a head-to-head. He had his chance. I'm going to talk about it on the mashup with him. He didn't want to talk about it too much. It was a 2-1 game. He has the final rock. All he's got to do is put it on the button. It's a tie game, right? But no, Twos doesn't want to tie. He wants to win, and he whips one through the house, and we win 4-1. So, hey, what are you going to do, Twos? That's tough. Now, how about we talk a little gold and silver? And to all, I should point out, to all the sponsors, to all the people who donated prizes. Our prize table was insane. Silver Gold Bull, Bow Valley Credit Union, among others, all donated. And when it comes to physical gold and silver in your registered account, Silver Gold Bull can help unlock the potential of your RRSP, TFSA, RRIF, Kids RRSP by adding physical gold and silver to your account. The deadline this year, March 2nd. But once any contribution is made, you can invest in the physical precious metals at any time. And they have all their in-house solutions, whether buying, selling, or storing precious metals. All you got to do is text Grahame down in the show notes for details on this, or for any feature silver deals exclusively offered for the SMP listener. Just go to Bow Valley. I'm reading the next line, folks. Go to silvergoldbull.ca. Bow Valley Credit Union. They're opening. Well, I guess it's today, right? They got their new spot coming here in Red Deer. They're opening a lending and advice center in Red Deer. As they work towards opening a full-service branch. It's all about lending, deposits, and real financial advice. You can open accounts, talk through lending options, and get help with banking, all in a space designed for conversations, not transactions. For more information, bowvalleycu.com. Profit River. Well, when it comes to firearms, folks, and all the things the Liberal government is certainly doing to firearms owners, you want a company that is looking out for your best interests and knows all the ins and outs of everything, not to mention has an amazing lineup. Whether you're stopping in store or going online, giving them a call, you can reach out to Joel, the primary contact for all you listeners, at smp@profitriver.com. You can also just go online at profitriver.com. You can stop in store, you can give them a call. They are the major retailer of firearms, optics, and accessories. They serve all of Canada, and just make sure to use SMP on the coupon code when you're checking out. It gets put in for monthly draws. Windsor Plywood, builders of the podcast studio table for everything wood. These are the guys. And, the sun was shining today. And I just, spring is in the air. I know. We got dog days of winter coming in February for certain. But, the days are getting longer. And when you're thinking about maybe some projects, you want some character wood, don't you? Whether we're talking mantles, decks, windows, doors, sheds, podcast studios, podcast studio tables, stop into Windsor Plywood here in Lloydminster and say hello to Carly and team. Tell them I sent you. The Cornerstone Forum was all the talk on the weekend, minus if I should say whether we're going to put on a Mashspiel 2.0 in next year. We'll get to that in the coming days or weeks or months. I'm sure me and Tooz will be discussing as we move along. But the Cornerstone Forum, March 28th, is coming soon. Lots of the people who attended the Mashspiel said as they were leaving, I'll see you at the Cornerstone, which is super cool. And if you haven't got your tickets yet, it's March 28th at the Westin Calgary Airport. The news last week was Neil Oliver. The news the week before, roughly, Premier Daniel Smith alongside Martin Armstrong, Tom Luongo, Alex Craner, Vince Lanci, Matt Ehret, Chad Prather, Karen Katowski, Sam Cooper, Tom Bodrovics. Tooz will be in a role as well. It's going to be a fun day and a fun weekend. Who am I kidding? And I hope if you're on the fence, get off the fence, buy a ticket, and we'll hopefully see you March 28th. If you're listening or watching on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, Substack, subscribe, leave a review. If you're enjoying the show, share with a friend. And if you're thinking about supporting independent media, consider becoming a paid subscriber on Substack. It helps me, and you get some behind-the-scenes footage. And we're working on a project. Jericho from Cornerstone, he does all the filming of it. We've got a little project coming out here in the next couple weeks, and Substack, you're getting the first sneak preview of that, which I think you'll be. Well, I think you did a really good job, but I'll get your feedback and see what you fine folks thinks. All right, let's get on to that. Tale of the tape. Today's guest is the founder of Echobay Partners, a venture capital group dedicated to exchange vertical investments. I'm talking about Vince Lanci, so buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Shaun Newman Podcast. Today I'm joined by Vince Lanci. Vince, first off, thanks for hopping on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Fun stuff.
Now, for my audience, they're probably staring at me. Where's Shaun right now? I'm sitting at the Westin in Calgary, where we're going to be having the Cornerstone Forum. Vince, you're going to be here for that.
This time I will, yes.
Yeah, looking forward to having you here in Canada and Alberta, and more specifically in Calgary. I've been, having a title sponsor, Silver Gold Bull. I've stared at the price of gold and silver now more than I probably ever have in my life. Right. And then certainly talking to people such as yourself, but like a whole host of different guys. Just had Luke Grahame on last week, so that was interesting. Silver right now, like I'm like, who in I'm going through my thing and my list of people, and Nick was like, you should just have Vince on. I'm like, that's a great idea. So here you are.
Well, thank you.
Walk me through silver. Walk me through Vince's mind on what's happening here with silver.
Well, it's kind of crazy because silver is supposed to be, silver is like the other metal, the other white metal. Silver has become probably the most interesting commodity on earth. And we're probably in the most interesting commodity markets in my career, which has been, pretty long in the tooth of all time. Meaning the silver market has benefited from a convergence of geopolitical things, global things that have worked their way down to like a domestic problem. So meaning the world is split in two. Everyone knows that the world is split in two. But I'm just adjusting my picture here. The price. Let's start with the price action. The price action in silver kind of radically changed going into when we broke $50, right? So if you pull a chart up, maybe you'll insert one later. I don't know, but if you pull a chart up, what you'll see is that the market kind of vacillated for almost 2 months between $44 and $50. And then it cracked 50 meaningfully in the beginning of December. And then it just took off. And I understand why that happened now in retrospect. First of all, we're going to walk through why we did what we did. The market hit 50 and stopped because, hey, it was an all-time high. But at that moment, a lot of producers were hedging. They're like, oh, we've never been here before. Hedge, hedge, hedge. And that kept the market capped for a while. And then when that hedging got done, there were some producers that wanted to hedge there. When that got done, the market started bizarrely taking off. I mean, technicians will say, well, it wasn't bizarre. We broke a triple top and all these other things. And you know what? And they're right? But I'm just saying the behavior was bizarre for me because it kept running, getting overbought, stopping, running, getting overbought, stopping. Not getting overbought, selling off, just getting overbought and stopping. And it ran up to $80 the day after Christmas, right? And then, of course, it just got very volatile for a couple of days in that time frame. And I said, all right, we're done. I said, we're done. That's it. End of the year, whatever's happening is over. But this is against this is what's changed. What's changed is first of all that big picture stuff that you and I and other people talk about, it's coming into focus at the policy level now. So the BRICS are de-dollarizing. They have been for a long time. And they've bought gold as much as they want to, at least right now, at least at the speculative end or the marginal end. And now they're buying silver. Now, I believe that the BRICS are buying silver for multiple reasons, and they all come down to de-dollarization. They're buying silver because I think they're going to use it as a collateral in their new regime. So you'll be able to use your silver as collateral. Now, what's my proof of that? There's no outward proof yet. But India just changed their rules so Indians can pledge their silver and not sell it and get loans for it. So now it's already being used as collateral in India. That's bullish. Second thing, reliable sources. There are at least one, probably as many as 3 tokenized silver products being launched in the BRICS. So that will be a very bullish phenomenon. And I think they're buying silver to that extent. So if you have a tokenized silver product, well, now you can buy an ounce, a gram, whatever the denomination would be appropriate for silver. Like gold, it's grams out there. Silver, maybe it's gram, maybe it's 10 grams, who knows? But the point is you're kind of democratizing the ability to own it. So those 2 drivers I knew about. And then in the West, we've got a world, or let's just say a half a world, that's now very familiar with and very aware and very scared of inflation and is aware that the other half of the world is de-dollarizing. And so they start buying silver. All that stuff I know. I'm like, okay, that's not a surprise. So why did it keep going after December? And the price went from the December high of 82 and change. It broke it on January 12th and never looked back. The market has run up from $82.50 to right today, right now, when we're doing this, it's $91 and change. And it makes sense in the bigger picture, but what were the catalysts that got us to go like this right now? And the answer is we are in a bidding war with China. It really comes down to, what's the date that you said, January 3rd, when we...
January 3rd, is when they went in and got Maduro.
Right. So So a couple things happened before January 3rd that I was watching. And, this is a little Columbo stuff here. About 2 weeks before January 3rd, the United States put out this NSS document, which essentially was the Monroe doctrine being restated. And essentially it's the North and South and Latin America, hands off. Basically the Gadsden don't tread on me flag, but in Spanish, and the effect of that was, once we declared that, I'm not going to say it's quid pro quo, but this happened almost immediately after. Within a week's time, China released a policy paper. And their policy paper was how they wanted to cement their relationships in Latin America. And I'm like, well, how do these two things coexist? Well, they don't coexist. See, the United States is trying to corner the market on Latin American strategic minerals, right? You've got lithium down there. You've got natural gas down there. Natural gas we're not worried about. Lithium in Argentina, lithium in Colombia, lithium probably in Peru, silver, copper, gold. They've got more gold than Africa, Latin America, and so I think that the United States finally really woke up and realized the difficulty that we're going to have unless we have our supply chains re-cemented, rebuilt, onshored, French-shored. And so, poof, we go into Venezuela, and in one fell stroke or foul stroke, I'm not sure how you say it, what do? We go in there, we throw Maduro out, use all kinds of crazy, aggressive weapons that are just rupturing people's kidneys, I heard about, which is fascinating to me. We get rid of Maduro, and in 1 week's time, we remove Venezuelan oil output going to China. That's what we did. That oil that's supposed to go to China is not going to China pending negotiation. That's the first thing we did. Second thing we did, we started stopping Russian tankers. So we're dividing Russia and China right now. Russia can't get the oil to China, and we're stopping Russian tankers. This is a big deal. So what else does Venezuela have? Well, they don't have a lot of silver, but they have a lot of gold. Now, that's what happened on January 3rd. And then since then, I'll tell you, I have a chart right here. From January 3rd, from the low of January 3rd of 71.25, which is a ridiculous price to begin with if you're as old as I am. From January 3rd to January 14th, yesterday, we went from 71, call it 71.50, call it 72. We went from 72 to 93.50. We went up 12% in 2 weeks, essentially, roughly. That's crazy. But it makes sense. We're at war. Everything about this is war. And silver, while it's not the most important thing in the world, is the most sensitive. It kind of, gets bent out of joint a lot quickly and a lot quicker than oil, say. So I would say that the price action is a direct result of all that other stuff we talked about, the dollarization, and quite literally a geoeconomic war where we're keeping the East out of the West as long as they're not giving us their materials in the East. And so
forgive me, Vince, there's the chart. Although this is Canadian dollars, as I sit in Canada and I always put it in Canadian dollars, you're talking US dollars.
Yeah,
there's from January 3rd to today in silver.
Oh, perfect. Right. You see the trough on January 3rd, right? Is that January 3rd or January 5th?
Right in the middle is January 5th.
Right. So the 3rd we were closed, I think. I think it was.
Oh, no.
January.
No, forgive me. That is January 5th, right at the start. The trough is over January 7th, 8th, and then it comes back up on the 9th.
Okay. So we started on the left, not at the trough, not the second trough. Yeah, so, look at that chart. That chart, the market with a pause January 7th and 8th hasn't looked back. And we're looking at a market that's manifesting the world's problems, even though it's a small market. I'm not going to say it's unimportant, but it's certainly not crude oil. You have a market that's manifesting the world's problems. We're at war with China for Latin American resources. Now, if I can, I want to dial in some other information that proves this. It's not just a story. Remember after Thanksgiving, we might have actually talked about it. After Thanksgiving, when JP Morgan pulled metal out of the vault, didn't make it available. They didn't physically pull it out of the vault, but they made metal. They had metal that was available for delivery, and they made it unavailable for delivery. As I like to say, they threw a sheet over it and they covered it up. Well, when they did that, that caused a panic in China. Somebody freaked out in China, and they started covering shorts out there. And then I find out less than 2 weeks after that, that all that Latin American, this is silver, right? So we need to talk about concentrate, right? Can I do that?
Sure. If before you go, I'm going to write concentrate down. I just had one thing in my brain that I wanted to bring up with you, because I'm like, you talk about January, like it's never looked back, and I just pulled it up. Right. I've been talking about, this is from November 1st roughly till today. Jesus. When I think of not looking back, I see this and I go, they never look back. Like, it just has been, we've been talking about it almost every day on the podcast about how it just continues to grow. And I was just curious your thoughts on this, because like, I know you've been staring at charts for, decades now. You call it long in the tooth. I chuckle about that, Vince. I just like, as a guy who normally didn't enter into this realm certainly 5 years ago, and now as I talk to a whole bunch of you, I'm like, every day it just seems like it was growing by percents or more. And like, when I think it doesn't look back, you point to January, and I'm like, I point like to last year, where it just seemed like as we inch closer to, if we're going to put the Monroe Doctrine or whatever part of that story you want on there, it felt like it was trending, and then it hit, and it just keeps going up and up and up.
Yeah, I mean, my take on that is really kind of to just basically agree with you and to put it in context. The run-up in silver began when it broke out technically, but the news coinciding with that was, here's what I noticed, and I think your viewers will notice it as well. Once gold stabilized at a certain price, the gold miners started to rally. They were up like 100% last year, but they didn't run at first. They ran starting, let's say, in August of 25. April, May, June, July, August. April to August was when they started to percolate. Gold flatline, but gold didn't drop. Now, the reason I bring up gold miners is because gold miners are kind of like silver. Gold goes up, it stabilizes, and everyone says, okay, can we buy the miners now? And they buy the miners. And then they also say, can we buy silver now? And they start buying silver. Now, what I think personally, to put a little tinfoil on it, is that between when gold started to run again in September, August 26th is when it started. When gold started to run from September through December, silver caught fire because I think that it was already decided that silver. Look, in August, silver was designated a critical mineral in August. That's when this all started, and it started to catch momentum. And now, as things are getting worse, you're seeing that parabolic or exponential move there. But I think
when you say Vince, sorry, when it designated a critical mineral, you're talking about the government designated a critical mineral?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did that. We covered that on Goldfix. And what happened was the U.S. releases every year its list of critical minerals, and usually it's the same minerals as it always is, right? But 5 years ago they added lithium. 5 years ago they added uranium, and those things over 5 years they tripled in price. And so when they came out with the report this year, they added copper and they added silver. Now I'm simplifying it. There's like two layers. One is a critical mineral, one is a military mineral. There's all these kinds of things. But they basically, when you look down the list, that was like in August, or maybe September. When you look down the list, every metal is a critical mineral now. Like aluminum, bauxite, whatever. It's all there. It's all there. It's not just rare earths. It's everything. Now, the critical mineral thing matters a lot because once our government, the U.S., list a metal as critical, then that gives them license to subsidize it, to spend money on it, to hoard it, to put in price floors. These are things that normally you can't get done when you need a referendum or, and you can't get them done in the US either unless you put out a proclamation. And that's what we did. And so since then, silver ran up, copper started running up. People talk about tariffs, tariff this, tariff that. Yeah, tariffs are a real risk, but that's not the point. The point is we need the metals. You don't tariff what you need, you buy what you need. I believe starting in August, the smartest money out there, macro discretionary funds, started to get long. And when they started to get long, the bullion banks, I know this, started to cover their shorts. And right around the NSS, when the Monroe Doctrine thing came out, JP Morgan flipped from short to long. Flipped. You can flip overnight when you're JP Morgan because you're the biggest player. You can do that because you can do it because it's a not because you're big, but because it's a quiet market and you can do things before people know about it. So I think your chart that you had up there shows the leakage of information. And since January 3rd, it shows the explosiveness of awareness. I mean, look at the slopes. That's a market that's waking up and that people are just in denial about, but they can't be in denial about it anymore. You just can't be. So does that work as an explanation?
Yes, it does. You were talking about concentrate.
Yeah. Oh, concentrate. Yeah. Simply put, you pull metal out of the ground in concentrate form, which basically means it's a bag of rocks with a high concentration of metal in it. And then you take it to a smelter. And the smelter, you have to buy the concentrate, right? And you take it to a smelter and you burn off all the impurities, right? It's chemical burn, but it's a burn. And then what's left is the metal. And then you take the metal and you make it into the bars, doré bars and, specific bars. Well, for a decade, legitimately for a decade, we have been not pulling in concentrate because we don't even have a smelter. We haven't built a smelter in 50 years. 50 years. Now, I want to put this in for context.
The United States hasn't built a smelter in 50 years?
Yep.
Okay.
But we are now. As of 2 weeks ago, we announced we're building a smelter. And who's paying for it? JP Morgan. The U.S. government's going to own 40% of it. And 2 weeks ago, right before the invasion, one of my sources said, hey, all that concentrate that used to go to China, it's not going there anymore. It's coming to us. We're pulling all of the scrap, you want to call it scrap, concentrate metal out of Latin America, and it's sitting here for us to use now. So you're looking at the war of metals. The world split into two. There's no metal. All this metal had been going to China, this concentrate form, because they had the smelters. They were buying the bags of rocks, shipping them over to China, and pulling the silver out of them.
And then redistributing the pure form.
Yeah, exactly. Using it industrially or what have you, but it wasn't hitting the COMEX. See, the U.S. COMEX is the finished metal. So what the producers would do, generally speaking, is they'd hedge production, they pull it out of the ground, they'd refine it, and they'd send it they'd hedge it on the COMEX, and it would sit in the COMEX vault, or metaphorically sometimes. Well, the producers stopped hedging a couple of years ago. Why? Well, that's because China was buying it before it was even finished. China was doing offtake directly from the mines. And now we're doing offtake. And so now there's a bidding war for all the unfinished silver. And it's manifesting in the physical price on the outside. How long that will last, I don't know. Meaning any day now that raw silver could be processed and then maybe they hedge it. Who knows? We could cut a deal with China. We say, okay, we're friends now. Who knows? But this price action is a direct manifestation of U.S. and China policy front-running each other to get core materials and natural resources to make sure that if the world splits in two, which it already has, everyone will be able to survive. That's what's going on. It's a manifestation of mercantilism, deglobalization, de-dollarization, and basically this part of the world is my part of the world. That part of the world is your part of the world. And never the twain shall meet. And that's where we are.
You said right at the start, Vince, something along the lines, everybody's knowing that we're two halves of a world. We've been split for a long time.
Right.
You might have known that, and a whole bunch of the people you talked to might have known that. But it was, to me, I don't know if I ever thought of the world that way until the U.S. started talking about the Monroe Doctrine. And I had read about the Monroe Doctrine a while back, but I'd never heard it in public before. It was almost in tinfoil hat conversations. I'm like,
it's almost like an antiquated. It's almost like an antique.
Right. And now they've brought it back, and everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
And you go into Venezuela, and you're like, okay. And then they start talking about Greenland, and you're like, all right. Now they're talking about Mexico, and I keep laughing to all my Canadian friends. I'm like, who's underneath the Monroe Doctrine? Us. Like we're sitting there. I'm like, exactly. At what point does he start talking about the Monroe Doctrine in Canada?
Right. And meanwhile, what's Canada doing? Talking to China about EVs. That's not good. That just makes Trump even more annoyed. Not that we're pussyfooting around him, but that's a real deal. The whole Arctic Circle. I mean, it's a different topic, but the whole Arctic Circle, if you were to look at the world from the top down, you would see that it's Canada, Greenland, Russia, and, Alaska, which is part of Canada, really. Canada, Russia, Greenland in the middle, and on the other side is, I don't know what's on the other side. Probably more Russia. But, right, Russia probably wraps all the way around. And then you've got Canada here, and you've got Greenland down there. And that's it. You got, like the Arctic ice has melted. It's no longer just a Northwest Passage. You're going to be able to ship there. You go from one side of the world to the other, almost like it's in a time machine. And we don't have access there anymore, and Canada does. And I think China wants Canada's access to the Arctic Circle, and the U.S. wants it. So everybody wants Greenland and Canada. It's like, the cold places are where you want to be now. So, but anyway, your comment about you don't think a lot of people looked at the world the way I'm describing it as separated. You know what? I'm going to include myself in your group because I didn't look at the world that way. Now, I'll give you a specific story without going too long-winded on it to tell you what I mean. When I was studying how gold's behavior was changing in 2022, 23, I noticed that certain correlations were breaking. The dollar would get stronger, the U.S. dollar would get stronger, and gold was supposed to go down, and it wasn't. And I started to see that these tethers were breaking. And these tethers that break are symptomatic of globalization breaking. See, if everyone uses dollars, well, if the dollar goes up, gold goes down. But as parts of the world stopped using dollars, most notably Russia, because of the Ukraine war, the dollar will go up and gold will go up too. And I'm like, well, Jesus, why is that happening? And that's deglobalization. The correlation breaking. It's like, look, I mean, you're Canadian. You can see that the Americans don't look at the FX market. Canadians do. It's like, yeah, well, look at that. Gold's going up with the dollar. So the Canadian dollar is getting crushed against the dollar and gold. That sucks. Like, I understand that, Americans we don't get it. Like, USA people don't get it. Canadians do. We're not very
well, you do. When bringing up Russia and what's gone over there, I guess when I look back on it, I would say I started to notice a split in the world around BRICS trying to get out from the dollar. That was something that you notice. You're like, oh, this is interesting, right? Like, where does that lead the world if everybody starts moving away from what the U.S. has and has become? Right. And you've seen a concentrated effort to do that. So I guess in that sense, I would say I started to notice the world is splitting in two. I don't know if I ever framed it that way, but once the Monroe Doctrine came in, I'm like, this is basically stating there's two sides of this thing and stay off our half.
I know. It's not hinting at it. It's not saying we'll talk about it. It's like, you know what? We're getting a divorce. This isn't a separation. We're done. But the humorous part of what you're saying is what happened to me. So let me say that, because I agree with you. When the BRICS started their currency stuff, you're like, we're all thinking, wow. Well, most of us, and I don't mean you and me, most of us said, screw it, that's nothing. The dollar is king. The milkshake concept. The dollar is king. Who cares? They've tried it before. It never worked, And you know what? That has happened before. And it hasn't worked. So everyone dismisses it. But people like you and me say, well, what if it happens? And we're watching gold. You watch gold. You're a Bitcoin person. You are watching Bitcoin. If it wasn't for Bitcoin, people wouldn't be talking about gold right now, in my opinion. Because it's like the whole world is like, oh shit, look at Bitcoin. It went up. I guess the dollar sucks. What else goes up when the dollar sucks? Oh, let's buy gold. Like, it's almost like Bitcoin was an entry drug for young people to learn about gold. I mean, all the old people are already buying gold,
Well, that's funny. So I don't know what I consider myself. I can't, but I was telling you, I was on with Ben Perrin, BTC Sessions here just a couple days ago, and he was calling me a gold. His entire show was calling me a gold bug. Now I'm a Bitcoin guy, and I'm like, I guess I enjoy all of it. I enjoy the sound theory from all these things, so I'm an all of it kind of guy.
Shaun, the Zen master. You're the Zen master, Shaun. When I hang out with my Bitcoin buddies, they need me to be a gold guy. It makes them feel better. And when I'm talking to Vince, the silver bug that he is, he feels good calling me a Bitcoin guy. You're the Zen master, Shaun. What are you going to do? I mean,
what are you going to do? I guess that's what I've become. You're
well balanced. Or if I want to be derisive about it, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none. I have some Bitcoin, I have some gold. It's like, anyway, I'm with you. But here's the funny thing is, while you and I are watching the BRICS de-dollarization stuff and we're going, well, maybe that could happen. See, I was lucky enough a year ago, I had a client, $1 billion hedge fund. I was managing money for him. And I called him up one day to get him on the phone. It was like, that's good because you're picking someone's brain. And I said, I'm not going to say his name. I'll just say his name is Bob. It's not Bob, but I'll say, hey, Bob. Hey, how you doing, Vince? You're all this is like basically your employer, so you're very respectful, Hey, Bob, you know what I've noticed? This is me in 2021. I've noticed that since COVID, the world is kind of getting like a little bit of mercantilistic. That's the first time I said the word. And he said to me, Vince, it never stopped being mercantilistic. I got to go. Click. And I went, he's right. Basically what he was saying to me is it's still all about who controls the resources. Just that we were getting along in the sandbox before. And I talked to him again afterwards. And so he was basically saying the world in 2021 after COVID, he was saying the world is going to split in two. And that's why I plugged into it, because of that guy. And that's why when the BRICS said, we're going to create a new currency, I was like, wait a minute. It really could happen. So that's it.
To go back to your jack of all trades, master of none.
I didn't mean to be offensive. I'm one of those people. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Jack of all trades, master of none, though oftentimes better than master of one. So
is that the whole phrase?
That's the whole phrase.
Oh, that's awesome. I never knew that. That's
great.
So
as soon as you bring it up, I'm like, but there's an extended part to that. I just got to remember it. I just looked it up quick because
that's awesome.
So like you're trying to be, like tease me. And I'm like, yeah, but actually the full quote leans back into a more positive light on what I do. Right?
I'm happy to be wrong about that. Touche. That's great. Jack of all trades, master of none. What did you say? Oftentimes better than one?
Though oftentimes better than master of one.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to do that.
Well, it's funny because if you look at silver, right? Well, I talked about it with Nick, and there was lots of things he brought up. I'm like, oh man, that's interesting. But if you keep going down the conversation, and you add you into it, I'm like, there's just so much going on in regards to just silver, let alone any of the other critical minerals, Vince.
I know.
You have to take a step back and see the big picture of it. And, and like the BRICS thing, how many years ago was that? We were all sitting there certainly I was sitting there listening to all you talk about. I'm like, this is wild. Like, can this actually get to a point where they do enough removal, walking back the dollar use, that it can have a bigger impact? And now you walk in and you like, well, the world's split in two because the Monroe Doctrine literally lays it out, like, stay off our turf. And then you brought up the fact that China releases a policy on Latin America and Taiwan. You're like,
Oh yeah.
oh man, we're coming to a head, or maybe we've already hit it.
No, you're right. No, but that's, I think that's the flashpoint, Shaun. Like, here's what I mean. The Chinese document, they call it a policy paper. It's like the fifth policy paper of the blah, blah, blah. And it says, we intend to strengthen our Latin American relationships. And I'm a student of China policy when it comes to how they interact with other UN countries. But we're not going to get into that, except to say this. China says, we seek to strengthen our relationships in Latin America. And I'm like, yeah, well, no shit you do, because you want all the resources. And then in the same paper, it says, and we will defend Taiwan. I mean, usually it's like, and we love Taiwan. Taiwan's ours. Like, it's in the bottom of the paper. This year it was up top. This is the paper about Latin America that starts with, if you fuck with Taiwan, we will kill you. Basically, it started with that. And I went, how does Taiwan have anything to do with Latin America this year? And I went, and then what do? We go in and we knock Maduro out, which gives them an excuse to say, well, I guess we'll just knock out the leader of Taiwan. Why can't we do that? And so the flashpoint is whoever the Chinese version of Monroe is, the Chinese Monroe Doctrine, for lack of a better word, the Benoit, that's basically out there. And they're going to invade Taiwan and say, well, it's good for the U.S., it's good for Russia, it's good for Israel. Why not for us? And that's our flashpoint. That's the kinetic war. And people have been forgetting about that, but Taiwan is a line in the sand that China will not bend over. And for the U.S., it could become a line in the sand for human rights. Taiwan doesn't want to be CCP. They don't. And Japan will shit themselves if that happens. There's your war.
Why would Japan, forgive me, why would Japan shit themselves if they invaded Taiwan?
Oh, yeah. Because, well, the first reason is Japan and China are still fighting their Cold War. They don't talk about it. It's smoldering. But Japan's war crimes, for lack of a better word, during World War II, Japan did to China and Korea, in the Chinese mind, what the Germans did to Europe and the Jews in Europe. And so, I used to date a Korean girl years ago, and she said that in Asia, the Koreans were called the Jews of Asia. And I was like, was that anti-Semitic? She goes, no, we were just fucking slaughtered. The Koreans were slaughtered during World War II. And anyway, there's a lot of bad blood between Japan and China that doesn't really need much to come to the forefront. But the current event that makes me say that is because if the U.S. is not willing to defend Taiwan against the CCP, then Japan has to rise there on their own. Because that means Taiwan becomes Chinese. And once Taiwan's Chinese, it's just Japan. And by the way, Taiwan is actually Japanese land that was given to the Taiwanese. Do you know that?
Say that one more time for me.
When China split, you have to, I don't have all the details on this, but when China split, and the ruling party left during the Communist Revolution, they went to Taiwan. Apparently, the Taiwan area was like a protectorate or a land zone that was controlled by Japan. So there you have it. Taiwan people may be Chinese, but the Taiwan land, it's been given to them, So Japan's not going to be, look, if we go out there and we say, you know what, Taiwan, you can go over there and you can be a part of China. We're okay with that. And China takes Taiwan and it goes, okay, we're that much closer with our missiles now. Japan's going to shit themselves. Japan's going to look like an aircraft carrier that they want to sink if they get Taiwan back. So that's my opinion. And Japan doesn't have a military force. at least not a good one. So that's my story.
If I come back to silver,
Yeah.
one of the things we'd written down at the start was drivers. All different. You talked about ETF buying, de-dollarization, physical bidding war. You had listed off a couple other things.
Right.
Vince, did you want to talk about that?
Oh, I didn't get to that. We just went right to geopolitics, didn't we? Yeah.
We went right to geopolitics.
Right. So the normal drivers. In fact, do you have that chart handy you have there? To bring it up again?
Of silver.
Yeah, that's perfect. The run up from August to November was moving with gold. You don't have to go back that far. I just wanted to get it off the plate. Now we're starting in November on your chart, right?
We are starting in November,
right.
Yes.
So the run up from November to December was a combination of things. And some of them were at the macroeconomic level, not the big picture, secular, visionary level. At the macroeconomic level, everyone started buying ETFs. You started seeing banks say, Morgan Stanley, 60-20-20, gold, bonds. Stocks, gold, and bonds. Not 60-40, 60-20-20. Well, if you're telling people to buy gold, you're telling them it's okay to own silver. And so the ETF demand came in. And so you had the London crisis in October, right? London didn't have any metal. Let's not forget that. London doesn't have any metal, and they're supposed to be the warehouse for the world. Let's not forget that. And the reason London doesn't have any metal anymore, aside from their own shenanigans and how they run their house over there, is because the world started buying silver in ETF form. And they took the silver, SLV, PSLV, whatever the ETFs are in China. Actually, it's not an ETF, but it's worse. So you have pulling of silver by the West because, hey, it's okay to own silver now. By the East, we don't want dollars, right? And you've got signs that silver is being depleted to the point where there's no more above ground stocks to take it. And so that run up from August through November was investment demand. It's still not at its peak, but it's where, look, put it this way. SLV ETF longs, which are investors, were at a peak during COVID. We're not even up to that peak yet. And the reason that's significant is because silver was $30 during COVID. It's $90 now, and no one is selling it. Investors, they may not be adding a lot. They are adding a lot, actually, but they may not be adding a lot because of the high price, but no one is selling it. There's no sellers. So the normal drivers are just being, actually Goldman put out a document, a report like last month about gold, and it's the same thing for silver. They said central banks have been buying gold forever, for the last 3 years. But now ETFs are competing with central banks to buy gold. And so it's all ratcheting higher. Same thing's happening with silver. Are central banks buying silver? Not that we know of, but the answer is yes, they are. Saudi Arabian central bank is buying silver. Sovereign funds that I don't know, but they are buying silver. And Russia said their central bank is buying silver. So silver is now a critical asset or central bank asset in every country in the world. And so ETFs are buying it while they're buying it. And it's just a price war.
Okay. Then I go, what do you see coming, Vince? Like if you're looking into the future, what are you watching for? What are you paying attention to?
Everything and nothing, it seems, at the same time. I'm pulling my head off. Well, today's a good day to talk about that because today it's all about fiscal decisions now. Today we talked about the critical mineral thing. Not apparently, the United States was supposed to give a ruling on the critical mineral status, meaning silver's a critical mineral, will you tariff it, yes or no? Copper's a critical mineral, will you tariff it, yes or no? Right? And they're not going to tariff those, at least I don't think so. but they were supposed to give an announcement if they were going to tariff it this week. And that announcement came out yesterday. And the announcement wasn't. This is key. This is bleeding edge information. I mean, this is like what's going on in the world now. The U.S. made an announcement. They made a presidential proclamation. I think I gave you what that picture looks like. Right. So the headline is adjusting imports of processed critical minerals and their derivative products into the United States. Okay. That's a presidential proclamation, which is like the critical mineral thing. Basically, it's part 2 of the critical minerals. We said we're not going to tariff these minerals, not yet, but we reserve the right to just buy the shit out of them. We want to rebuild our supply chains overseas. We want to create price floors if we have to. And we want to tariff them if we have to as well. But we're going to put a 180-day window on that. Now, this news came out 2 days after silver rallied $6. So that's the market figuring it out. So this is what to look forward to. Today was what to look forward to. You and I talked about this. We thought it would come out over the weekend. It came out yesterday, which is great. We can talk about it now. So moving forward, what do we look for going forward? Well, what we look for is signs that either on the bullish side for the commodities, the U.S. is moving down the road to buy more. And you'll see that with regulations and rules and rhetoric. Trump will start dissing China openly, whatever. Or you look for signs of communication. China and the U.S. are going to sit down and talk, and they're going to talk about lithium and oil. Silver's not even going to be part of the conversation, but silver implicitly is part of the conversation. You want oil from Venezuela? We want your lithium. And this is what Trump has pretty much said what I'm about to say. Lithium is a thing you get out of the ground. You may have more than us now, but in 2 years, we'll have all the lithium we want. Do you really want to mess with us that way? And that's the truth. China needs oil. We have oil. They're going to need it from us. And they need Venezuelan oil, which is energy rich. It's dense. So what to look forward to? Over the next 180 days, you have to keep your powder dry. You have to be light with your positioning if you're a trader. If you're an investor, you just say, as long as we don't have a hugging moment, then you just want to be long everything. And I think it's getting worse, not better. I don't think there's China wouldn't be panicking to buy silver. China's panicking to buy silver right now. And if they're panicking to buy silver right now, that's because they don't want to give up their lithium. Everyone is emptying the shelves like there's a blackout or COVID hoarding. Everyone's going for the toilet paper. Bad analogy. Silver's not toilet paper. You get my point.
I get your point.
Right, exactly. Jack of all trades I am, but master of none. All right. So that's it. Hopefully that helped.
If I can hold you just on that thought just for 1 second,
Sure.
Vince. One last kind of final thought. You talked about what you should be looking for.
Right.
Is does the U.S. come together with China?
Right.
A hugging it out moment?
Right.
Or do you see them continue to go further and further? And if you're China, obviously I'm not China, but if I was China, I'd be trying to position myself in a better bargaining position, which would mean I want to find all the silver I can or whatever I need so that I don't have to rely on giving the United States a better deal. Am I right in thinking that?
No, you're
right?
completely
You're
right in
pointing to
thinking
oil.
that. That's why I say it's a war. You're completely right. Look, if we're going to have a war, let's use Russia as an example. Russia and Ukraine have been threatening to have a conversation for months. And every time they threaten to have a conversation, Russia takes more land, right? So every time we threaten to have a conversation with China about natural resources, they take more silver. They take more oil. They do what they have to. I agree with you. That's the behavior of someone who's at war, who wants to have a stronger bargaining position at the table when he finally sits down. It's spot on. That's what's going on right now. The question is, when will they talk? 180 days from now? 3 days from now? You remember the tariff? The last time we talked about this was what did we call it? The Liberation Day, tariff liberate, whatever. That's crazy.
You were talking about the chocolates, I think, from Ontario, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't that?
Wait, no,
the toffee?
Macintosh.
Yeah, Macintosh. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So that's it. I mean, like, you're right. It's all about bargaining positions. And by the way, that's why we're throwing down. We're doing the same thing they're doing. We're like saying, okay, you know what? You can't be in Latin America anymore, and that's our bargaining position. We drew a line in the sand. That's our Taiwan, if you want to look at it that way. So yeah, I agree with you. That's a solid point, and one I think people should pay attention to. There is
Vince,
this leads to a negotiation. The question is, how bad?
When is it?
When is it, and how bad will it be, and how do we prepare for the negotiation? That's what both sides are doing right now.
Vince, appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to having you here in Calgary, March 28th. If people haven't bought tickets to that, they still can. There's still a little bit of room and time left. Showpass.com/Cornerstone Forum. Cornerstone 26, sorry. It's down in the show notes as well. And Vince, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Premier Danielle Smith is going to be speaking at it alongside, along with a bunch of people, Tom Luongo, Alex Craner.
Oh yeah.
There's a whole list. Neil Oliver just got confirmed this week as well. So we're gonna have a lot of fun, and looking forward to finally meeting you in person. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and as I am for you, and I appreciate you working with me last year, and I'm happy to be reinvited back this year.
Well, I don't know if you know this. You got a lofty stage to hold, because everybody talked. The group that I'd brought in talked the day after last year's event. Who'd you have come here? And the resounding name was Vince Lanci. So we're excited to see what Vince brings to the table this year. Yeah, very excited.
Oh, great! Now I have to figure out something. Now I have to be clever. I have to say something smart. Oh boy! Thank you, Shaun. Again, thank you so much. And by the way, when you have this out, when you put this out, let me know so I can give people a link to the event in my post as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vince. We'll talk to you.